with some of you, not all. It was about 6 months ago when we were just starting. Well, when I started here as an employee anyway, and Anna will detail some of the things we were doing before that, but it's been a good 6 months. We want to take some time and talk to you all about what we're doing and how you all can be involved. We've got to give you a year overview. I think we've been informally calling this the state of the Institute, similar to the state of the nation, but with by far less applause. So unless you want to, we'll let this happen to some and that happen to others, and you'll know your cues when Anna stands up. That'd be great. So thanks so much for being here again. The president is going to be here at some point, and we'll take a pause out of our prepared remarks when she shows up to allow her to say a few things. And let's talk about what we're doing today. So we're going to talk about who we are, what we've done, what we're going to do, and what this means to faculty and for new opportunities. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce, well, we have open Q&A at the end. Let me introduce Anna McIntyre, who's going to walk through the history of the Institute and some other things about what we've been doing over the last year. So please welcome Anna, the Associate Director. Just like the State of the Union, right there.
Thanks. It's good to be here today. Like Brian mentioned, we've been in this room a couple times before talking about the Institute. Even before Brian began as the director, I know that some of you have been here 2 or maybe 3 other times when we've been talking about what this could be. We have many of you in here who are very familiar faces who have helped and been integral in lifting the Institute, but we have a lot of new faces here as well. We welcome you. We're excited to share what the Institute is and what it's about. So for those of you who have heard this before, please indulge me while I do the 2-minute spiel about what the Institute is and why we're here and what the goals and intents are of it. The reason that I'm so excited about the Institute, the reason I put so much effort into this, is because we don't just have a 5-year lift on this, but it really is a 140 years of expertise and great research and our identity as a land-grant institution and the type of legacy that we've had since the founding of Utah State that means that we can be successful in land, water, and air. But this particular name, this particular conglomeration of disciplines came about 5 years ago when President Crockett approached the Office of Research and my team to talk about and said, I want to put together some efforts on demonstrating our leadership in land, water, and air research. So we started with the Research Landscapes, which was an event series, but was framed around understanding who our external targets and audiences were, as well as who are our researchers, our students and faculty who are involved in land, water, and air research. In 2019, many of you will recall, that's when President Crockett launched her 10 presidential priorities, with land, water, and air research being one of those. And then in 2021, that's when these efforts really started crystallizing around the idea that these efforts could live in an institute. During the 2021 legislative session, HCR 20 emphasized the support and establishment of the Institute, gave us some marching orders and what the expectations are that this should be. And then by the end of the year, we were so pleased to announce the founding endowment and naming of the Institute to make it the Janet Quinney Lawson Institute for Land, Water, and Air. And we put out our very first report to the governor and legislature on land, water, and air in Utah. And most of the first half of this year has been kind of some logistics and figuring out what the Institute was going to look like, staffing, getting Brian to agree to come on board. But now we're at the point where we have Brian as the executive director, me as the associate director, or part of me as the associate director, as well as an administrative assistant and some partial time from a number of people on my team as well as in other spots. And we're really grateful for everyone who has been a part of that and helped make the Institute what it is now. The goal of the Institute Our mission is to guide Utah land, water, and air policy by connecting decision makers with high quality research. We showed this little diagram to College of Natural Resources faculty, and they kind of chuckled because most of them realize that there's not that much of a disconnect between Utah policymakers and land, water, and air researchers. But one thing that was surprising to me as I have been getting to know and understand the workings of state government over the past 6 months is I kind of just had the assumption that if you work with someone in state government, then everyone in state government knows what you're doing. And I didn't realize the absolute chasm that there can be between our state agencies, to which many of our faculty members have strong connections, and policymakers. And so it's not just a matter of being connected to state government, but also connecting to the right people at the right time. And that's what the Institute is designed to do. So that's the quick rundown of the Institute. And I'd just like to spend just a quick second talking about the main things that we've been focusing on over the past 6 months and some of the projects that we've been engaged in. The first one has been really making sure that we are understanding and increasing our outreach and connections among those two groups in the Venn diagram, both internally and externally. Externally, we have a really engaged and fantastic advisory board. We meet quarterly down in Salt Lake. These are the membership organizations of everyone who is involved in and has membership on our advisory board. We've got government as well as industry representatives. We have policymakers on both sides of the aisle, and we have really robust and useful conversations while we are talking about what are the issues that researchers need to be responding to, as well as communicating some of the things that we're finding out from our researchers as well. Additionally, the Institute has had a presence at a number of statewide presentations and meetings to let our external audiences know and understand what we are doing and what the Institute is designed to do. This is a selected list of the places that Brian mostly, but Brian and I have been to over the past 6 months to share a little bit about the Institute in formal presentations as well as less formal meetings. Internally, this is something that we have been working on. It's something that we are going to be emphasizing in 2023, but we are really, we've been doing as much as we can to meet with as many people as possible to get an understanding of what faculty think about the Institute, especially about research competencies and expertise. I have mentioned I do a fair amount of web stalking of all of our faculty members on campus. I know a lot of faces who don't know my face because I see profile pictures and I read CVs in my spare time. But even with all of that, I don't know what everyone does, and all of the different ways and the new projects that may not be showing up on CVs. And so my mental Rolodex needs to be augmented with a more formal Rolodex of our land, water, and air faculty members. Secondly, we have been working on funding generation. We are exceptionally grateful to the Janet Quinney Lawson Foundation for their founding endowment, and there's a lot of wisdom and real longevity that comes with an endowment. So when it does vest, we will have operating funds that extend decades, if not longer. But right now, that doesn't fully vest until 2030, so we have been doing some work to get a little bit of walking around cash until that happens. We are really grateful that we've been able to partner with Advancement on some different opportunities to reach out to some of our potential funders. This is the campaign launch event, Aggie Blue Carbon event that we were able to participate in, and we had a number of our researchers there able to talk with donors and the work that they were doing and why it was important to the state of Utah. Something that when we were here last, right when Brian started, that we weren't expecting to be involved in is what's called a Great Salt Lake Strike Team. It is a partnership that has been formed with Utah State University and the University of Utah, as well as the Department of Natural Resources and the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food. And it's kind of a novel approach to using research quickly to inform policy, which is going to happen in the presence or absence of good information. So we have been taking a vigorous but quick approach to answering questions that we've received from the legislature to help be able to inform policy as we go into the 2023 legislative session. And we are going to be presenting that report within the next week or two to legislators as well as to the governor, who has expressed that he's been waiting to be able to hear the latest. It includes impartial policy assessments of some of the options that you've seen bantered around in the news to put real monetary and environmental and feasibility costs on some of the things that the legislature is going to be considering. We know that there's probably 30 USU researchers who have their projects touch the Great Salt Lake in one way or the other. It wasn't fun or easy to choose 5, but the structure of the strike team is to keep it small and nimble so that we can all have conversations in the same room together. We've been really appreciative to Joanna and Beth and Sarah and David and Matt for participating, uncompensated, for we've probably had 15 or more meetings to this point and a lot of extra work to put these together. But we're really hopeful that it's going to yield some very positive impacts for research and for the university in the coming legislative session. The last thing that I wanted to touch on is the report to the governor and the legislature. We were able to present our second report last month to the governor. We had some of the graphs that are in the report rotating on the screen as you were coming in. There are some reports that are at the table in the back, and what it is the contribution of about 38 different authors in very short hot takes on 25 land, water, and air issues that were selected from what we were hearing from our faculty members as well as what we were hearing from policymakers in our advisory board. So then being able to say this is what we need to know more about, and then or researchers saying this is what the legislature needs to know about, and sharing that with these audiences. We're really grateful for the researchers who put their time and effort into putting that together. Brian will talk about a little bit more about how we're going to leverage that in 2023. We are really excited to continue to refine and improve the process so that next year Lel does not have to make I survived buttons for putting the report together. We appreciate that, but we definitely want that to be more fun instead of real. That's a quick summary of the Institute, where we've been so far, and I'll give the microphone back to Brian, who will talk about where we're going to go.
So before we go there, I just want to point out that Kelly really did sleep through the whole thing. So it was embarrassing for all of us. Okay, so where we're going. So here's the reality we've been dealt. We live in a state where there is oftentimes a paucity of information that is utilized in making decisions at a state level. And that's not a dig on our legislators or any other regional government. The reality is this: they have to make quick decisions and they have to make the best decisions that they can. We want to position this institute over the next 10 years to be in a position to where we are able to respond quickly and effectively with the information that they need. And so we would like to expand Utah State University's position as the go-to source for issues regarding land, water, and air. I think that we're already in a pretty good position to do that, but let me give you an anecdote. I know a lot of people in this room are not like true policy people, right? They play in policy on the side, but one thing that happened probably 15 years ago or so, the University of Utah started something called the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute. Everyone thought, this is just another think tank. It's just something that that we're going to have and be in the policy suite of options within the state of Utah. Having worked in government, both at the national level and the state level, I can tell you the Kempsey C. Gardner Policy Institute has become a go-to shop. To where if you have a question on demography, that's the place you call. If you have a question on economic future of the state or the economic conditions of the state, unfortunately, they're the folks that are providing the reports frequently that are being looked at. Our vision is to be that same thing, but in the issues of land, water, and air, so that we're able to speak with that same degree of credibility. The advantage of doing that is that, listen, you are all experts here. But oftentimes people don't know where the one-stop shop is, and they don't know who to contact. We want to be the facilitators on who to contact and provide the research. You're all research to those that need it most. So, where we're going and how we're going to get there. This year is going to be, a study in 3 M's. 1, movement, 2, media, and 3, money. Let's talk about movement first. We are a policy-centered outfit, which means that we are concerned with making sure that our impact is on the policy setting. We very much want to be involved with the legislature. We want to be involved with developing policy writ large around the state through strike teams and solutions partnerships. And we're going to get involved in something we call the Policymaking Handbook, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. Let's start with the legislative session first. Next Tuesday, a magical moment happens in Utah. The magical moment when the legislature convenes and like all your dreams come true. And it's really remarkable, but for the next 45 days, starting next Tuesday, it's going to be it's somewhere between a marathon and a sprint, and a marathon, and then probably added some mud and other things there. But it's going to be a bit of a slog. We want to make sure that we're participating in the legislature effectively. And so we're going to be spending a fair amount of time in the legislature. One of the things that Lael asked me coming in was whether or not we'd help facilitate, so we can point you in the right direction to people. If you would like to go to and interact with your legislators, happy to help do that. Let me be very clear, I'm not the VP of Government Affairs. That job is filled very capably by Devin Weiser, but we would very much like to help how we can and facilitate that conversation here. Let's talk strike teams and solution partnerships. Strike teams, not my word. It sounds like we're going to bomb the hell out of the lake. And I always think that when we're saying, get it, it's probably not the best. This was chosen by the aforementioned Gardner Institute, but it's actually been a fairly interesting exercise where we've had a team of their 4 researchers, our 4 researchers, and our 2 shops, to where we're getting together and saying, okay, so what are the questions that we're being asked? And in this case, the questions were being asked by Brad Wilson. Brad Wilson, if you don't know, is the Speaker of the Utah House. And looking at that, he had a list of questions that he wanted answered, and we're working on getting sufficient answers to that, and that's kind of the origin of this strike team. Our success there, it's been interesting because I was told yesterday that this has become kind of something that government is interested in partnering with. And the success on this has been that we've also brought in the state agencies with jurisdiction. We are also going to have, Anna mentioned both the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, as well as the Department of Natural Resources. We are also bringing in the Department of Environmental Quality as well, now that we're moving into really questions of salinity and other things that are going to be really detrimental going forward. But I didn't have any idea when I said yes to the phone call, if you want to participate in the strike team, that it would lead to additional opportunities. There are now at least 2 other strike teams planned for the state, one on Utah Lake, and one dealing with energy. I don't know who the player is going to be yet. And here's the rub. It's been a bit of a volunteer effort, right, David? David's been involved. It's been a labor of love, right? But it does require work. The benefit of that is that we've also been able to have direct conversations with those policymakers and influence policy, and I think that our report is going to be the go-to manual for this legislative session on kind of policy options. That's pretty cool to participate in, and we would invite many of you here to participate. I don't know where those next 2 strike teams are going and how they're going to get off the ground, but I will say they are going to happen. And so stay tuned, and we'll be in touch. Third thing, Policymaker Handbook. this idea kind of came about because we realized that there is that paucity of information on a lot of things. And just basic facts. We were approached by one of our board members who is a city council person, and that board member said, hey, listen, I've worked in the city council for 2 years now. I have no idea where our water comes from. This is the person that has the job of knowing where their water comes from, and it's never been really explicit on where this is. So we're going to put together a policy manual with just general facts on what are the things that we're dealing with here, and that's something that we'll be doing this summer. Stay tuned for that. And then media. One of the things that we've been asked to engage in, specifically from the Janet Quinney Lawson Foundation, is trying to get information out to the media. We have seen real interest in these issues going forward. In this last year, and we expect that there will be continued interest in those issues going forward as well. We will engage in another report to the governor this year. We're going to change the time frame because we got feedback last year that we probably should have that report issued in September. The reason being is because that's when bills are being drafted and bill files are still open at that time, and so that it would be better to do that. One of the ways we're getting feedback from the legislature this year, specifically, as well as the governor's office, is we're going to hand deliver these reports starting next week to every legislator at the state legislature, as well as people in policy positions that matter for these issues. And so they will know what we are, and we're going to ask them the specific question, what type of information do you need from us? And we can tailor next year's report on that. But that means that we'll be selecting authors and trying to get work done about the end of March, and then leading into really first drafts probably by end of the June timeframe. So it's going to be a little expedited over the last year. Just be aware for those that participated. It's tons of fun. The Great Salt Lake Collaborative. We had contact last week with the Great Salt Lake Collaborative, which is a media organization that's really a conglomerate media organization of all the different players in the state of Utah. We've asked to join that collaborative. They have external partners. So there's a center for Great Salt Lake at Westminster that's a partner. We said we should be partners as well. That's still pending for them, but I'm letting you know that regardless of that, we had a very positive conversation. They were very interested in some of the things that we're dealing with. One of the things that there's not been any stories on, for instance, is the potential endangered species issues that might come up if we have salinity. The salinity changes that are actually predicted unless we get more water in the lake. And if you have those endangered species issues, what that does to the regulatory environment of the state, which might be quite severe. And it's something there's not been a story on, and when I had this conversation last week, she was quite surprised that they haven't studied that. So that's something, if you're interested in being an ESA expert, come talk to me. Because there will be media questions. But these types of engagements with the media are things that we're searching for and to make sure that we're able to get the word out effectively. So that's the second then last thing that I'll mention is this week in Utah's Land, Water, and Air, we're starting a newsletter. As a policymaker, I often found it to be effective to have some conglomeration of information sent to me. It's very passive, I know, but it's helpful to get this. So what we've started to do is put together a weekly summary of the articles of merit in Utah's news and sending these out to policymakers, as well as I think many of you in this room got them as well. It's not a 100% list, but it's certainly important. So we had issues. What's that? Yeah, and if you're interested in receiving it, you haven't already received it, we do have a sign up at the front desk as you're leaving. So for instance, collaborative stories on Great Salt Lake, water generally, on Colorado River issues, on public lands, on wildlife, ESA issues, on energy, and then we have some other things that we have a photo spotlight. We have talented photo folks here that and so we have photo spotlights so people can see that there's pretty things, not just the news. As well as, if we go down, something we gleaned from Utah State's research world in a report that we've done here and promoted on other Aggie research highlights. So we'll be doing this each week. And so that's what we're doing. We've had positive feedback on this. We just barely got it out the door. I think it was yesterday. So we had first run, but we'll let you know. If there are news stories that you're aware of that policymakers should know about, don't be shy, let us know. We're happy to put them in. Talk about the Great Salt Lake Collaborative. Let's talk about money. I wish that I didn't have to say what I'm going to say, but money is important. Surprise, I teach economics occasionally. So that shouldn't come as a grand shock. But what we like to do, the things we like to do, oftentimes require investment. We're going to go through 3 ways we're seeking money. We have project-based grants and contracts that we're working on currently. Some of that is with people in this room. Others are with external parties. We've been approached by several new corporations and startups that are looking for help one specifically was on surge irrigation. There's others that do a drip irrigation system, and they very much want us to partner with them to do or at least facilitate research with them. I can't do that research, but I know people that can, right? And help facilitate that type of research to see outcomes, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So there are going to be project-based contracts and grants coming forward. We do have a limited amount of money. As Anna said, our grant is not fully vested. Sorry, our gift is not fully vested, our endowment. But we do have a limited amount of money. One thing that we did do this year, this is our friend Randy Martin. Randy does a fair amount of air quality work. There's a one-time opportunity here. He studies ammonia. I believe that Randy actually made this, which is maybe my favorite graphic of all time. Anyways, when you look at Cache Valley, and then you look at where we have high concentrations of ammonia, Cache Valley has enormously high concentrations of ammonia. Not fully understood why, and why we have that, what they've called because when you put it on a graph, it kind of looks like a volcano right in the middle of Cache Valley. We have this unique natural experiment going on right now to where we had avian flu come through. Made a big change on the amount of chickens being raised. And chickens are oftentimes pointed at as being the likely source of a lot of that ammonia. And so he's able to study that pre-post with chickens and without chickens. And so we were able to get together and have we gave him a small grant of about, a little more than $12,000. And we will be doing something similar this year, so keep that in mind. Probably we're going to ask for applications sooner, and I'll go through that in the calendar, but just be aware that's out there. Lastly, we're spending a fair amount of time working with donors. That's our namesake, Janet Quinney Lawson. And we're really excited to be working with that foundation as well as many others and trying to get additional fundraising assets so that we're able to do more things like that faculty outreach and student support. One thing I should mention as well before I get too far into it, we have actually also had a endowment for student work that we should be getting a first tranche of that money this year. We don't have the details yet on when that exactly will happen, but when that happens, we're happy to involve some of your students as well on research because we think that really matters. So what does this all mean to you? One, very much like to get to know you. Two, we're going to provide Policy 101 training throughout the year. Three, we're going to have some issued lunches. Four, we're going to have conservation. We knew this would happen. Conservation conversations. Say that 5 times fast. And then funding opportunities going forward. Getting to know you. Many of you in the room have received our survey about what you do. If you have not received our survey about what you do, we would very much like to hear from you about what you do. And we will be sending this out if you want to as well. We'll have the QR code up at the end. And scan in and you can fill out a survey so that we're able to best connect you with people. We're also going to start an experiment with Zoom office hours. We'd like to have kind of 10-minute hellos if you're interested in telling us more about yourself and things that you do. That would be awesome. We're looking right now at 2 dates, one Thursday, February 2nd, and Monday, February 6th. And we're happy to send out those dates and a reminder if you're so interested as well. Policy 101 training, we're going to have a Policy 101 training this spring. It's Tuesday, January 31st. It's going to be in the TSC Sky Room. What we're going to do is talk about kind of the things that we're seeing in the Utah State Legislature and how potentially we can be involved. So that's something to look forward to, put it on your calendars. In the fall, we will have another one of these. We're hoping to get one of our friends from the Utah League of Cities and Towns who does a phenomenal presentation on understanding the motivation of policymakers. He does it in the form of cast members on, well, they're Muppets, right? Or Sesame Street cast. Yeah, Sesame Street cast members. It's a great presentation. And so he was unable to come up this spring, but we're happy to have him then. Issue lunches in the Sky Room. We're going to have host two issue lunches this spring. One is Thursday, February 9th on the Colorado River. And then we'll have one on energy on March 3rd. And if you're interested in either of those topics, these are going to be informal conversations to share information about how we as a university are engaging on these issues and how we can be engaged on the policy issues generally. In the fall, we will be talking about agricultural optimization and indigenous tribes and land management, which has become an increasingly important topic, especially in the federal state. Conservation conversations. This spring, we are going to have it's a bit of a speaker series. We have Darren Perry, who's from the Northwest Band of the Shoshone. He is currently on a fellowship at the University of Utah, where he's presenting on this issue. He would very much like to give us the same presentation as that Utah State sits on historical lands of the Northwest Band. And so we're having that on February 23rd, and then we will have one that's going to be announced, but it's in conjunction with the College of Natural Resources. We are going to do a screening of a new documentary on Stuart Udall and the politics of beauty, done by one of our alums. It's also being screened at the Department of Interior in the next couple of weeks. That's where it's premiere, and then will be the next stop. And I understand it's quite awesome. So I haven't seen it yet, but that's something that we can look forward to. In the fall, we are again going to partner with NEMA and UPR on a policy conversation regarding one of their things they're doing at NEMA, aesthetics, environment, policy in the West, specifically regarding fire. And then we will do a partnered event with the Institute of Government Politics, where we're bringing in a policymaker, still yet to be determined who that is, but expect to see it this fall. So, as I mentioned, there's the Iowa Impact Grant. That's the Randy Martin thing that I was telling you about. Be aware that our call for proposals will be out March 1st. Our proposal deadline is March 31st. And our award notification will be on April 17th. So be aware. It's not that much money, but it's something and can really help projects get off the ground. And it's up to $15,000 this year is what we budgeted. I wish there were more than one of these, but that's all we got for this year, but expect more in the future. And if you're interested, please let us know. And also be aware that we will have a preference for student support and show a unique opportunity for the state. And obviously it has to support the mission of the Institute. And with that, I think that's where we are. And President Cockett. As I mentioned at the beginning, President Cockett was tied up in some meetings. She's here now. President, would you like to say a few words? While she's coming up, I have to say how personally grateful I am to the President for her vision and leadership on this issue. Really, the Institute would not have happened but for her engagement with it and her dedication to getting funding, as well as finding the right staff. I wouldn't be here but for her invitation, and I am truly grateful to be back home. These are things that I love to do and a place that I love to do it. So please join me in welcoming my friends.
So as you can see, I'm not going to stay long. I actually have left my coat on. I was telling the story that I don't even remember where it was at, but you know, as being someone who's been here at the university, it's going on 33 years, I have had a long term appreciation for what Utah State does in the areas of land, water, and air. And I think my first exposure was when I was Dean of Agriculture, Vice President for Extension and Director of the Ag Experiment Station, because I saw many of the projects that our more senior people here did during their time, and really saw the impact of what those were doing for the state of Utah. Then when I became provost, we were moving into a stronger position for what Utah State can do for the state and the region. And I started suggesting to the then president, Stan Albrecht, that we create something like the Institute for Land, Water, Air. He chose not to do that, but I never gave up that dream of really bringing attention to Utah State for all the incredible things that have happened and will happen. And so when I moved into the president's position, I was actually able to work with Anna McIntyre and Lisa Barreau on a concept of bringing our stories to Salt Lake. And those of you that heard that story, it came into the research landscapes, and we talked about how while we can zip down to Salt Lake in a matter of an hour and 10 minutes, when people come from Salt Lake to Logan, they bring provisions and snow tires and maps as if they are crossing the frontier of Utah. So we wisely realized we have to bring our stories there. And like I said, that was the creation of Research Landscapes. And special thanks to Anna with all of her creativity, that has actually become an event that over 100 people attend. And it's news and policymakers and community leaders, a lot of you, and just all the people that really care about this. And then that, in my mind, was then we would move that into the Institute. And then, as you know, we did the announcement of that. What I hadn't anticipated was actually the university's support of the institution. I actually thought we would have to drag you folks, come on, this is gonna be great, but you folks have embraced it. And I think it is, again, that commitment to all of you for what we can do for the state of Utah, for the region, and to highlight the issues in these areas that you care very, very passionately about. One of the first things I heard when we talked about the Institute is we need to go to the legislature and get money to create the Institute. And I actually turned it around and said, let's make the Institute happen and talk about all the great things we have done and can do, and they will bring the money to us. And that is exactly what is happening. And so the other thing was we wanted to name the Institute. We did not even in the corner of our mind envision how passionate outside people would be about that. And of course, we thank the opportunity to have the Janet Quinney Lawson Foundation's name and dollars supporting this institute. So, like I said, it took a long time building into it, but the momentum is really taking off. And I will tell you a selfish story. One of the best things of my day is when I look at the calendar and see that Brian is coming in to meet with me. I have learned so much and so many cool things, and then later in the day I tell others about what I've learned. So today I remembered to Brian that about, is Rob Gilligs here or anybody with Clemens? About 10 years ago, when Rob Gillies was talking about climate change, he used to talk about how here in Utah, we would see a shift from snow in the timing and also rain and the timing. And I remember he talked about how we'll get more snow before the calendar year, and after the calendar year, we would start seeing our temperatures rise, which would move us in from snow to rain. And I think it's happening. I'm just going to tell you that. And every time it does, I say, I remember when Rob Gillies told me this was going to happen. But what I learned today is what we have to do about that as a state. And whether that's building reservoirs at a lower elevation, whether it's putting gravel reservoirs so that we can collect the rainwater, all of that. So our institute is going to be, continue to be an incredible resource for, like I keep saying, the state of Utah. And I am so, so glad that Utah State is able to show our strengths and our contribution. And as I've always said, this isn't about me or Brian or Anna, it is about all of us. And without you folks being part of this institution, I mean, that's how we will carry this forward. So decades from now, I think you will hopefully be remembered as that first group that created, elevated, and moved this institute forward. So I just want to say thanks, because it is you guys. So.
All right, so now the time is yours. What questions do you have? Seriously. Yes.
Thanks for this. It's great to have this update. A number of times the president mentioned state and region in terms of impact and so forth. And yeah, a lot of the framing has really been state focused in Utah. What does that more broader regional picture look like? And how are you positioning the Institute to engage in the broader regional issues?
I do think it's a really important question. In truth, we have to start somewhere, right? And we made a strategic choice to focus mostly on the state in the very formative period, simply because it's the easiest to get to and the easiest to measure impact. In truth, we're going to have to move to the regional levels because the things that we care about are regional things. They are not necessarily just, they don't stop at the border of Utah. I mean, and just three real-world examples. One, in the Colorado River, which is going to be a fight for a very long time about how to use water, what we should be doing with the water, who should get the water, and in an era where you have less water flowing in the river, how that's going to be decided. That's going to be 7 states, not Utah's decision. And the federal government's going to be involved as well. Even something more regional like, say, the Bear River or Bear Lake, we're going to have to be more involved regionally, simply because there are other states that are going to have a say in policy that impacts either the Bear River, which would be 2 other states, or Bear Lake, at least 1 other state, and actually maybe even Wyoming, because the level of the lake impacts storage ability based on the compact agreements for the Bear River. Thirdly, just air quality issues generally. They will not stop at Utah's border. We're going to have a really interesting conversation this summer when it comes to summer ozone, because the state is going to make the allegation that much of our summer ozone is imported from someplace else. That may be true, but we'll generate a lot of our own, right? And so that's going to be part of a regional question that people are going to have to work out. So I think it's important. I wish I had a better answer to say, yep, done. But we've really been staffed for 6 months. Give us some time to get there more regionally, all right? Yeah.
So as we develop external grant proposals, is there a value or a mechanism to connect to the Institute?
Yes. We would love to be involved in any way we can. And the mechanism, let's talk about that after, all right? I mean, in truth, Anna or I are happy to field that request. I know that we have done that at least on 2 existing grant proposals currently, and I'm happy to get involved in when we can. And even if it's just, even if we're not directly involved, getting you pointed to people that might be important to hear about is something we're happy to do as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? I'm curious.
Well, if I write an NSF proposal and it deals with this topic, I just wonder if we connect to the Institute, that might be of value to our proposal in terms of others reviewing it, but what's the value to the Institute?
We would like to participate in any of those if we can. We're looking for opportunities. And so, not knowing more about the details on how or what, it's hard to say in the abstract. I will say this, there's an NSF grant that this university's already received that deals specifically with security implications as well as just water impacts on a regional basis for a drying Great Salt Lake. And that we were named as part of and were successful in getting in part because that we have that interdisciplinary feel.
I guess the one thing that I would add to that is a benefit for us that's not insignificant is that understanding research that's in process is really useful because it's harder for it's harder thing for me to know and keep in mind. And so I do some periodic requests from sponsored programs on specific research topics and say, you know, I need all the grant awards that have been sent for the past 5 years when it's Great Salt Lake or Utah Lake or some of those. But, and we're working on a way to get more regular reports on that. So there is a huge benefit, even if we're not directly involved in either the proposal or the award process, to simply just be in the loop. And that allows us to help figure out, you know, what can either piggyback or be leveraged with the work that's being done.
David.
So following up on what Scott just said, NSF grants often require a broader impacts part. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for the Institute to help coordinate broader impacts that Utah State could have that might address, it would obviously depend on a specific proposal, how it gets written, but I think often researchers need help with that aspect, and if the Institute could help, that'd be great.
We would love to be part of that. It's a great suggestion. Thanks.
We've talked about some of that. I think that research landscapes can be used a little bit in that way, but there's only 3 of those a year. And so we've talked about some other ways that we could involve more people in broader impacts or general community outreach type activities, which hopefully should be emphasized more for promotion and tenure activities. So, but we don't have a formal, here's the funnel that all of this goes in yet.
Yes.
I would imagine, just listening to that conversation, that someone who's writing a proposal would be fascinated to know what question the legislature actually wants to have answered that aligns with that proposal, and that would be tremendously important, both from a impacts, but also just from a, hey, we're about to start thinking about that, we can add that aspect or one little variable into a question to really address an on-the-ground.
And I think that makes a social motivation as well. That you're able to report back to whomever at NSF or whatever your training source is to say this is the impact. And I think that makes it relevant, and something that I personally love about that is that it's a twofer. We're able to get funding, but we're also able to answer important questions that those people that fund a public university might care about as well. Yes?
Forgive me if this is ignorant, but I was kind of struck, and I thought about this last time I heard you guys speak as well, by the fact that there's not a whole lot of invocation of public health in here per se, and I was curious if that's by design. Okay.
It is not by design. It's because we just don't. We could, but we haven't yet.
Okay.
I think that there's a number of research strengths that we have at the university that we view as, I guess, maybe peripheral to land, water, and air. One of those is public health. One of those is transportation. Energy is one that I kind of viewed as peripheral, but seems to be pulling in a lot more centrally. And I think another one, I know that we do have some people from the humanities here. For me, that's kind of the torch that I'm carrying, is making sure that we are including the context that comes from land-grant university, and that's focusing on arts and humanities as well. But we do, I'd love every faculty member at the university to be part of the institute.
Yeah, agreed, and we're not going to be exclusionary. Yes.
So I think it's great that you do these yearly updates to the governor's office. I was wondering if there were any other discussions about doing more frequent, like white paper or policy paper sort of updates with our research, something that is distilled from peer-reviewed publications that we do, that the Institute could help us distribute.
Yes, we're very interested in that. It would help facilitate that. The issue that we've had thus far is capacity.
Okay.
We just haven't had, the workforce yet to get that done, but we envision we will have, and that's going to be part of that being the go-to place. Other questions? We've got lots of cookies, it's great. Doesn't seem like there's anything else. We're going to be around for probably another hour, so at least we have the venue. And the cookies are fantastic, I haven't had anything, so feel free to take some. Can I make one last plea before we all leave and we get noisy? We want to be as helpful as we can be to the university community. We also want to make sure that what we're doing here is relevant and moving the ball forward on a state basis. I think we're at a crossroads and we're at a really unique opportunity where we can do both those things. And I'm so grateful that we have so many people interested and willing to participate in that process, because in truth, we don't have all the capacity we need to have yet, but we do have a team that's able to do a bunch more than we're able to do ourselves, and working together on that, I think it's kind of the highest and best use of land-grant university and a public school generally, and I'm so excited that you're willing to be part of it. So thank you so much, and if there's anything we can do for you, let me know. Thanks.